Hello Crapshoot! This is Heather Newton reviewing your entry in the Social Deduction Game Design Contest, The Order. Let's first start by looking at the imagery and everything above the fold on your shop page. I really like what you've used for the background image here. It's good to fill the space, and it is like just detailed enough, not too detailed. It's a little bit mysterious and everything, and then you have your logo over to one side with an interesting font, which is consistent with the branding of your whole game and everything, and that looks great. I see you have it up for sale on the Game Crafter, which is great to see, and it looks like it's a pretty approachable, affordable price point, so you've kept the components under control and doable for people to purchase and easier to say yes to as they purchase on the Game Crafter. So that's great to see, although it's not part of the judging. That's just me giving you encouragement as a fellow creative in the community for moving forward on your goals for this project. Let's look at your cool factors next. I think you've done a good job making these focus on what is unique and interesting about your game, and making the most of your opportunity to write stuff here in the top corner. It's interesting that you can choose your role, or that you have some agency over what you want your experience of the game to be. That sounds interesting and intriguing to me. Then looking over at your description, it looks like we have some kind of image error. I'm not sure why that's happening or what that was probably supposed to be. It might be one of the pages from the rulebook that kind of show what the different objectives of the win conditions may be for the different factions, but yeah, the whole story behind your game is really interesting. I might put a little bit more of the story in the description because it is, kind of fascinating and intriguing, and will draw people in, make them interested to look at the rules further, potentially. And we'll look at the rules in a minute here, but let's first look at your box. Oh, and I'll say too, I think you've done a good job of not making your paragraphs too long or making them run on and on. You don't have a whole lot written in general. I think maybe you were hoping for most of the information to get conveyed by what that image is, but it's just blank and missing. Yeah, repeating things that images say is good for, especially for people who say they use a screen reader to be able to tell everything that the page is saying. You can put in the alt text of an image that has a lot of words the exact words that are in the image, or you can also reiterate the most important points of what it says in bullet points or something next to an image or something like that. But now let's look at the box. This looks really cool and well branded. I can't quite, from this size, of course if I had the real box I'm sure I'd be able to read it, but at this size I can't quite tell what all these smaller words say. I'm gonna guess the thing on the cover is sort of like a tagline of what's interesting about the game, and then the thing on the side might be the player count and everything. I think so. It doesn't have the icons, but it seems like it would be legible, and the box is really clean, so there wouldn't be a lot to distract me from being able to find that if that's what those things in the L-shaped, it's probably falling off the side of the box, so part of it's on the cover and part of it's on the side, so that looks neat. I might use the one side that doesn't have anything on it. I might put the name of the game there too, in case somebody puts the game on their shelf facing out a different direction. At least one side would have the name of the game sticking out. That could be a good addition. Well, let's look at the action shots. So this action shot, it's like nice to see the cards, but there's lots of words on these cards, and the words are a little bit small in this image, and having access to seeing what all the cards do in an organized way, I think would be helpful in the presentation and deciding whether or not this game sounds fun for somebody shopping for it. So it's cool that I can see the art on the cards. Like that's really what I expect, you know, this area to be showing off. It's kind of borderline. It's like almost looks like it's showing off what the cards are for as well as the art because of the way they're laid out, and you can see the words, although you can't see all of the cards. I like something more like this for the action shots where it shows the setup of the game. This is really interesting how you've made like a mock-up, a cartoon mock-up. I'd rather see this image up here embedded like you were going for here, where it would be holding still and it wouldn't be moving in the carousel, or I wouldn't have to do anything to stop it moving in the carousel, and I could read it. And I'd actually like to have an index of all the cards and what they do, because my best understanding, we'll go over and look at the rulebook now. You have a really lovely looking, highly graphically designed, very artistic rulebook. I have a feeling that this is what you were going for having embedded on the shop page, just this one page of the rules, so people could get an idea of these. And of course, like, my understanding is that this is not a card that makes you the order, but it's one of the characters, one of the kinds of special abilities in the order, as well as the elite and the brotherhood, and what makes the cards. It would be the color of the card that would tell you which faction you're in. I think it could be good if you would also create a icon that denotes which faction you're in, or maybe a different embellishment on the different ones. It looks like they're all the same. They all have the same lines, but just a different color. And you might be able to make that a little bit more colorblind friendly and have just another visual cue of like which faction that card is. Because it does seem like in this game there'd be a lot to keep track of, all the different abilities and balancing your motives, and it looks like you get to choose your faction. It does seem like this is a game that probably gets easier to play after you've played it before, and the first time you play, it feels like you're pretty likely to be confused because there's so many different characters and just a lot to take in, and the rule book is really long. It's partially really long because it has so many great images and everything, but it is a really long rule book, and you have some examples, but I don't know. Maybe you're giving every single possible role here in the rule book. Maybe you are going, it's a reference of every single thing, but I guess the way that it's laid out is making me not totally sure that it's everything, and thinking it might just be a few examples or like some favorite examples, because it's not. Okay, so here we have a list of everything we could have, possible combinations. This might be better presented as a table. Okay, different setups, like recommended games. Yeah, I think it's just going to be really important to organize all of this in the most approachable way possible. So it's like really beautiful, but it's hard to parse. It's great that the writing is like really large font, so people who have not great eyesight can read it still more easily. So I think it's good that you have the large font. But I think like also while playing, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, there's some bluffing going on, and you can do the action of a roll, even if you don't have that. If people are willing to let you get away with it, you don't necessarily show your card to be able to do your action. But I don't think you have this. I don't see any kind of like player aid or anything. So if you think about the game Coup, which I think is the most basic version of a game where you call out the ability to do something and you just do it as long as somebody doesn't stop you. In that game, every person has a player aid that says what all of the possible things to do are. So, like, how are you supposed to bluff at something you can do unless you have memorized without a player aid? You will have to have memorized everything possible to do. And this game has a ton of possibilities, like way more than Coup. And that is intriguing and interesting, and you have like tons of cool art and developed characters, and this whole world seems really intriguing and interesting, and I'm curious to try the game, but I ultimately couldn't choose it as a finalist because it felt just too overwhelming to feel sure that I knew how to teach it, or I could picture, generally explaining it to my playtesters and everybody feeling just frustrated and overwhelmed because they can't know what all the abilities are, and there's no player aid to help them out. So I think that would be the one big suggestion I would make, is adding some kind of player aid. And the thing that's kind of tough about that is I guess it might just need to be a really large player aid, or maybe you can organize them in a quick reference way. Maybe there are a lot of things that are kind of similar to each other and just like slight variations on each other. I can't remember the details of all of the different abilities, but it feels really overwhelming, and I could just imagine having playtesters that were grumpy with me and frustrated trying to understand what they were allowed to do in the game, not being able to see and know what all the cards were. And even if we did sit down before we started playing and show all the cards to everybody that are in the game and talk about what they all do, there's nothing to help people remember what they are. So I guess other than the rule book, but even the rule book is really spread out and long. There's not like one page in the rule book where there's a table that kind of explains everything in one big organized way, so that you could have maybe that, I don't want to be picking up a rule book and leafing through the pages and trying to find the page that matters to me right now when I'm playing something like a social deduction sort of party game, large group game like that. So, some kind of player aid, some kind of way of helping people quickly reference all the possibilities and see the ways that certain roles interact with each other quickly, I think would be a huge help to bringing out the part of this game that is the most fun. And I'm glad to see that you're selling it. I hope you'll keep developing it and driving people to purchase it. And I wish you luck as you continue working on this project. Hey there, thanks for watching. Be sure to check the description for more information and links to helpful resources. Some links give me a commission if you choose to buy, and I sure do appreciate the support. Thanks again, and see you in the next video.